welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I am doing my Battle for Baldur's Gate retrospective. Going back, taking a look at that set after it's been out for about a year, and just looking at how everything shook out. I always like to go back and see, were the predictions correct, first of all, that me and other content creators made? What are the most popular cards? What are the most popular commanders? How impactful have these cards been on the commander format? And I think obviously because Battle for Baldur's Gate was a commander set, it is certainly the case that it was an impactful set, and even more so than I originally thought. I'm still finding cards. I'm still digging up cards. I'll probably mention a few in a video coming up. Obviously, when you have a commander set, there's a lot to go over, so you can't talk about everything, but I'm still digging up really, really great cards. I just talked about one recently in my 10 cards video. Really great cards for the commander format that certainly need to be talked about. Of course, I'm going to use EDH Rec as I always do. It's the best database for commander statistics. And I love looking at the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I like looking at the numbers and seeing where things are at. It's never completely accurate, but it is pretty darn close. So let's get to it. And here we are. And of course, the backgrounds, they got 100 combinations here. I don't know if that's all of them. But the way they do it in EDH Rec now with the partners is, as well as they do all the different pairings. A lot of people didn't love the backgrounds. I went from, I don't really like the backgrounds to now I'm going to actually have a background deck. My Lulu and Guild Artisan deck is for the most part complete finally, and I'm going to start playing it. It takes some getting used to. It just does, especially when you're an old guy like me and you've been playing the game for a long time. Some of these things take a while to adjust to, and even the commander format, which I've only been playing for maybe 6 or 7 years now, maybe. Even that, it's like, okay, enchantments in the command zone now, come on. It takes some getting used to. I'm okay with it. Now, backgrounds, especially in the 99, I think there's a lot of them that are great in the 99. The most popular combination, Folk Hero, and this is just like when they started doing the partner commanders, there was a lot of different partner combinations, but there was a few that it's like super obvious that they were just a match made in heaven. And of course, these two, that is the case because this one is a creature type thing, and this is creature type, and 2200, not bad. Abdel Adrian, which, why this one? This creature, oh yeah, it's a blinking one. So obviously there's a commander that you want to be blinking a lot. So not a lot of surprises. I'm not going to go over a ton of these. Like some of them, this one I don't even know. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if an opponent has more life than that player. They did a lot of the, whenever this creature attacks a player with the more life thing. I don't love that. Just like with the dethrone mechanic, it makes it so that it is very... So if I have a guy I really want to attack, or even a guy I can get in for damage with, if he doesn't have the most life, then this doesn't do anything. I don't love that, but whenever you roll a one or more dice, put a, what? What does this have anything? Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no point, this creature can't be blocked. Instead, roll that many dice. So this is a dice rolling commander. Whenever you roll one or more dice, put a, is that it? You just want your commander to get big and then make it essentially unblockable. Okay. That surprises me that there's 1,300 of these decks. That surprises me. Because this is not exactly a match made in heaven. So the fact that this is the third most popular background pairing is kind of surprising. Like Raised by Giants, I thought for sure, like Raised by Giants and Wilson was the one. Again, it's like, okay, these two obviously look like they were meant to be together. Because just with your two commanders in play, you have a 10/10 Vigilance, Reach, Trample, Ward 2 creature. That seems pretty good, right? Master Chef, and again, like... This is okay. It's okay. Again, I think there's way better options for Lizelle. It might have something to do with, like, blue and red is maybe good dice rolling colors. So the color combination might play into it a little bit. Power less than power or goaded. Okay. So yeah, that is actually, that's okay. So you have creatures your opponents control. So this will goad your opponents a lot for sure. Because they're, of course, all your creatures, essentially all your opponent's creatures are going to be goaded, right? And whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you create a treasure token. So, yeah, okay. That's not bad. This one, okay, you're in Selesnya +1/+1 counters, which, okay, there's probably a lot better commanders for that. But this one, the first time you would draw each turn instead, This is sort of like surveilling, right? Because you're putting cards into your graveyard. Okay, and Dimir Colors is good for that. So yeah, like I said, I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of them, like again, here's another one where it was like, okay, these obviously are meant to be together. Whenever you cast a spell from exile and Durnan is you're exiling cards. It's kind of weird to see this on a non-red commander, but you may exile a creature card. I guess they're doing creatures here, though. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And you're obviously, again, match made in heaven. So not a lot of surprises. Here's another one. Again, Wilson with the Cultist of the Absolute. Wilson with Raised by Giants. Both of those I thought were just slam dunks. This one especially, I thought, I'm surprised it's not more popular. I mean, we're already at 500 decks here. That's not a lot. Wilson's pretty popular, eh? He's in a lot of these combinations. In fact, I would probably, I mean, it doesn't surprise me a ton, but it looks like Wilson is the most popular background commander, right? Because we have 3 different combinations here. And I only see, I guess this guy is the only other one. This has 2 different combinations. But this one's great. Again, just with the background and your commander, you have what? A 5/5 flying death touch vigilance trample reach. I mean, the reach isn't really necessary with the flying, but and then ward, pay 3 life and ward 2. So you'd have to pay the 2 and the 3 life. Pretty great. You need to sacrifice a creature, but that's not hard to do. And then you could just build around that theme of the typical Golgari sacrifice theme. Yeah, so like I said, I'm not going to go over all of them. Obviously, there's a lot. You can see there some interesting ones. Again, this was the one where I was like, why not just play the other Volo? The blue. I knew a lot of people were going to pair up this mono blue Volo with a green background, but it doesn't really do anything. Your creatures enter the battlefield plus. I mean, I guess you could do the Volo thing and the +1/+1 counter thing, but at the end of the day, it's just a really bad Volo. Ernest, I'm a little surprised this isn't more popular. This is the most popular Ernest combination, which is kind of weird. I thought for sure people would do a black-green version, although I don't know, maybe match it with, what would you match it with? I don't know. But a black, because then you could do a Gitrog style of lands deck, but I guess Gitrog. I mean, doing a red deck, sacrifice another creature or an artifact. This deals 1 damage to any target. I guess people couldn't find a good match for Ernest. I mean, you clearly the people that are doing this just want a red-green lands deck, which is, understandable. Black-green probably might be better, blue-green. I'm trying to think, like Seismic Assault is the only card I can think that is a really great fit there. Definitely sacrificing creatures or artifacts doesn't fit this at all, except with Dryad Arbor, right? So that's an interesting one. But again, we're now into the 200s and 300s. These are, I'm kind of surprised there's as many as there is. This is another one. Like, man, this Sarvok and Raised by Giants. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no permanents left the battlefield this turn, that player loses X life, where X is so 10 life. Hoo-wee. I'm surprised. That's a really good pairing. So I'm actually surprised it's not more popular. There's a few surprises, but the analysis is just, because of the back, again, just like with the partner thing, it's just, there's so many options that you just never know what you're going to end up with. It's impossible to guess. Again, for me, I was thinking Wilson would be one of the most popular ones because it's just a really great Voltron commander that you could pair with a lot of different things. Like Zelix, I thought would be a little more popular. I have a patron with Agent of Iron Throne Zelix deck, which, again, you're sacrificing those horror tokens. Again, here's another good matching. So this one I'm a little surprised at, but I guess there's a lot of really good Dimir mill commanders already. Obviously, Zelix goes in the 99, a lot of those decks. Jahiri is another one where I thought, oh man, tokens you control have tap, add a green. So much you can do with that. I said the same thing about Benny Braxton. I was wrong there. So maybe being too open-ended is not, like, is that the highest? Oh, we got a Jahiri Inspiring later here. Okay. So, and again, only 300 decks. That's a really good pairing. Creature tokens, they all get +2/+2. That's a really good pairing, and it's only... Oh, we actually have quite a few Jahiris. Yeah, it is a popular one for sure, as I thought it would be. I mean, not really popular, but there's a lot of different pairings because you can do so many different things, right? Here you can do, I imagine people are doing the treasure token thing. I can sacrifice those treasure, or you can do any clue tokens even, although treasure is way easier in Gruul colors, and here creature tokens, and there's so many different pairings there. I knew that one would be a popular one for sure. Anyway, obviously there's a ton here, and I think I don't know if 100 is the maximum amount of combinations, because obviously look at all of these. Lulu, of course, being my favorite. I now have a Lulu deck, and I would, again, it's not very popular. It's more towards the bottom with most of these. Cultus of the Absolute and Lulu is the one that I put on my channel. You guys can check that out. I did make a deck that way. It's a really neat commander, and there's a lot of different directions you can go with it. And that's one that I for sure would recommend for people to check out. Man, Ellen Hargreaves again. Some of these I'm like Shadowheart is another one I thought, man, that's really good. You're just sacrificing a creature and drawing a bunch of cards. I thought it would be more popular. But again, you just never know. There's my deck, Lulu and Guild Artisan. Again, I think that's a phenomenal pairing because the treasure tokens very easily can be used to trigger your commander. Only 76 decks. Looks like I can load more. I'm not gonna, though. It probably just goes and goes and goes. Let's look at the actual regular commanders. And of course, as I've stated on my channel many, many times, one of my biggest surprises ever is Miram Sentinel Worm. 13,000 decks. It's one of the most popular commanders in the entire format. And I find that surprising. Again, and I've played against Miram decks now by this point. I'm just like, it's not blowing me away. Just like with Prosper, same thing. Everyone's going off about Prosper, and I play against my patron's Prosper deck, and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, you're doing stuff. You're not like winning the game, though. You're not running away with it. I don't think it's particularly powerful, and I don't think Miram's particularly powerful. You're doing stuff. It's certainly not powerful. I would much rather play against a Miram deck than an Ur-Dragon deck. That guy's way more powerful. Let's actually take a look at the most popular commanders in the entire format. Of course, the Ur-Dragon is quite a bit more popular. If we're just talking about Dragon Tribal here, and then Miram is like, look at that, top 12 in the entire format. Really? For a 3-color Dragon Tribal deck? And I know everyone's going to comment in this video again. Oh, the things I can do with my... Okay, but your commander costs 6, so you're not doing a whole lot before you get your commander out. And it's, man, more popular than Corvold. Whew. That's more popular than Muldrotha, right? Goshinte, like, that's surprising. That's all I'm saying. It's one of the biggest surprises for me, for sure. These two right here, Prosper and Miram, the two biggest surprises for me as far as commanders go ever, because I can't believe how popular they are. But I digress. I won't harp on it. Obviously, people like it. Captain Nagathrod, again, is a little surprising, although I will say I played against my patron's deck and pretty powerful, pretty powerful. Yeah, this deck gets out of hand real fast because whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to player, that player mills that many cards, and you don't really want to be... You could be milling here, but it's more that last ability. At the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn. They're just taking the best thing. They mill a bunch of stuff, and then they just take the best thing and put it into play. Oh, boy. And they don't even have to hit you. They can mill you in other ways, too. It's a powerful commander, really, for sure. But, I mean, again, look at, like, really powerful commander. Miram is, like, double the decks, almost. Wow, people really like Miram. Okay, anyway, moving on. Merkle, Lord of Bones, which I thought was the most interesting commander. I'm not saying it's the best. Again, it costs 7. That's a lot. It just has such a unique ability. And I knew it would be popular. I thought it was probably the most interesting. Again, I'm just talking about interesting. It's really interesting because whenever another non-token creature control dies, you may exile it. If you do create a token that's a copy of the card, except it's an enchantment and loses all their card types, there's got to be some really neat things you can do there, right? Raga Draga, again, is another one that I had people ask me to do this on my channel. I've had lots of requests for this. I don't get it. I don't think this is a good commander. It's very obvious what you want to be doing, you know, and I think that's why people like it is because it's mana dorks. Hey, they made a mana dork tribal deck. Each creature you control with a mana ability gets +2/+2. Whenever a creature you control with a mana ability attacks, untap it. So you have two ability. You have this really nice anthem, and then you have an ability that works really good with your mana dorks, of course, because you can attack with them and then untap them on your second, or when they attack, you can untap them. Then in your second main phase, you can use them as they're intended, as mana dorks. The issue here is most mana dorks, almost all of them are 1/1s. Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic. So I have now a 3/3, a vanilla 3/3. Why am I going to, who am I attacking with my vanilla 3/3 that isn't just going to block it and kill it? Like, why do I want to be attacking with my mana dorks? Raga Draga makes it so that it is possible. It's a little easier to attack with your mana dorks, but why do I want to do that? I don't. I'm going to have a 3/3 or maybe best case scenario 4/4 creature that I can attack with. That doesn't seem very good. So then I attack with it, and then I get to untap it, and okay, it's already untapped if I don't attack with it. I don't know. That doesn't seem great. Whenever you cast a spell, if at least 7 mana was spent to cast it, untap target creature, it gets +7/+7. 7 mana? That's a lot, right? If you cast a spell, whenever you cast a spell, if at least 7 mana was spent to cast it, untap target creature gets +7/+7. I mean, that's okay, sure, but I don't know. I'm thinking 7 mana, that ends games a lot of times. There's a lot of spells that'll just end a game for 7 mana, right? I can cast an Elish Norn or a Shieldred for 7 mana. It's okay. I'm really surprised this one's as popular it is. Tasha the Witch Queen. Whenever you cast a spell you don't own, create a 3/3 black demon creature token. So a lot of people like that. The tribal, I steal my opponent's stuff. And of course, black and blue are the best colors for that. Draw a card for each. I haven't really looked at this much, of course, because it's a planeswalker. Draw a card for each opponent. Exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard and put a page counter on it. You may cast a spell from among cards exiled with page counters on them without paying their mana cost. So pretty good. I mean, obviously her abilities work together. There is a ton of support here, obviously. I would say probably more in black, but also in blue. Ton of support. Stealing my opponent's stuff, casting it. So that's why I think this is so popular, because it's just bringing all that stuff together under one roof, right? Faldorn, which is a one that I wasn't super impressed with when I first saw it, but I've become more and more a fan of it, and I almost want to make a deck myself because there's just so many neat things you can do here. As I talked about my 5 unique builds video, you could do, like, casting stuff from exile covers so many bases. Suspend is casting stuff from exile. Foretell is casting stuff from exile. You could do like a suspend foretell deck with Faldorn, which is really neat. There's a whole ton of cards that are, especially in red, that are supporting. This is what I would do. I would do a whole bunch of suspend and foretell. I would do all that when you cast it from exile that you have in red. I did a short list on that. And then I would also do the Evolving Door thing again, which I just talked about in a video about how Evolving Door works with these exile tribal commanders because it is casting stuff from exile. So you could do all that in there. It's not super powerful. I mean, whenever you cast a spell from exile or a land enters the battlefield from exile, you create a 2/2 wolf. That's okay. I mean, I say this all the time about Field of the Dead. I'm like, okay, it's just making 2/2 tokens, which in Commander is not, I used to say the same thing about Sidisi, Brood Tyrant. Yay, you're making 2/2 zombies. I'm not really threatened by that, so I don't really care that much. Here, again, making 2/2 wolves isn't great. I wonder if anyone's doing wolf tribal with this, because you certainly could do a little bit of that. And this ability, discard a card to exile to do Impulse Draw, that's not super great either. But just having a Gruul commander in Impulse Draw, I think, is getting a decent payoff. You don't need a super awesome payoff, just a decent one, because also, obviously, casting spells and playing lands from exile is easy to do, right? So you don't want a huge, awesome payoff. You just want a decent one, and that's a good one. I think it's a really good commander. John Arenicus, again, this is like we're in the same boat with Tasha here. I guess not really. It's a little different because you're giving opponents creatures. So I guess we're on the flip side of the coin here. Instead of stealing, we're giving. And it's interesting. I knew this one would be popular. It's doing a very unique, interesting thing. Again, it's doing the goated thing, which, I mean, we already talked about background commanders that are goading. We had 3 sets in a row, Neon Dynasty, New Capenna, and Baldur's Gate, that were just goading. And I'm going to make a video about this right away, about the absurd amount of like, they're doing a lot of the same things. All I'm saying is we're doing a lot of exile tribal. We're doing a lot of goading, a lot of treasure tokens. It just seems to be a lot of the same stuff. We're just tweaking it. We're either doing a different color, or we're doing it, we're goading, but we're also doing this, or we're goading and we're doing treasure tokens. They're really, really just hitting on the same few. I actually, again, I'm going to make a video about it. There's like 5 different areas with commander design where they're just hitting all those same, it's treasures, or it's exile tribal, or it's goading, or it's, I'm not going to get into all of it, but it's just really a lot of the same things. It's really interesting. Whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, you draw cards. So again, it's literally the opposite of Tasha, I guess, where you want to donate here. And there's some really neat, like Phyrexian Infiltrator, some really neat cards you can put in this deck that that's cool. It's interesting. I knew it would be pretty popular. Elminster, another, I mean, I'll just say, again, just like with Lord of the Rings, we have some really popular IP here, right? Elminster obviously is probably the most popular. You know, I am a D&D guy. I'd say he's for sure the most popular character, you know, NPC as we call it in D&D in Dungeons and Dragons period. I believe is this not Gary Gygax's actual character? Maybe I think could be wrong on that, but super popular. So for that reason, you know, a lot of these commanders will be more popular for that reason, just like with the Lord of the Rings commanders, because people just want to play Elminster, right? Whenever you scry, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of cards looked at while scrying. And oh boy, has this guy gotten better, right? Because of course, we just got a bunch of scry tribal stuff from Lord of the Rings, but of course it's blue and green. So there's a little bit of, I think there's a couple of cards that might be mono blue with the Scry Tribal. So obviously that I think there probably will be at least a couple that are really great fits in here. So if you have this deck, might want to take a look at that. Nine Fingers Keen. You're doing gates, but only in 3 colors, which is pretty tough, I think. I mean, they have quite a bit of gates now, so maybe it's not. I mean, when it deals combat damage to a player, and of course it has menace, which makes it a little easier. You look at the top 9 cards of your library and put a gate from among them onto the battlefield. So it's pretty easy to get there, right? Then if you control 9 or more gates, put the rest into your hand. Wow. Otherwise, that's actually really powerful. So if you have 9 gates, you're essentially drawing 8 cards and putting a land into play. That's really powerful. Wow. Yeah, I don't think I gave this. I don't think I gave this a good enough look when I first. Right then, if you control 9 or more gates, put the rest. Yeah, that's really good. Again though, it's just like with Ratatrabic, where you're casting a 7-mana spell, and people see that stuff and they're like, "Oh wow!" But 9 lands, you got. 9 lands means I can cast an Expropriate or something and probably end the game, or cast a Crater Hoof and end the game. It's neat, but by the time I get to 9 lands in play, the game's probably going to be over right away anyway. So, it's a neat spell. Obviously, you're going to do the Maze's End thing as well. I don't know. How hard is this to do? I don't know. I don't know how many gates are in Sultai colors. Usually when people do the gates thing, they want 5 colors. So obviously you can include more. Maze's End decks are usually 5 color. So how hard is it? I don't know. I thought it wouldn't be nearly as popular though, because it is only in 3 colors, but it's pretty popular. Jan Jansen, Chaos Crafter. Another one I didn't really talk about at all, but it's sacrifice an artifact. Creature is pretty easy. Again, in Mardu colors, you can do the aristocrats sacrifice theme, and you can also do the artifact sacrifice theme, which red does really well. So you can combine that all into one deck. Sacrifice a non-creature artifact, so you're creating more artifact tokens. So you're in an artifact creature token sacrifice theme. Okay. Baba Lysaga. This is an interesting one. And I guess, we are in the Golgari sacrifice theme, which I suppose has been done quite a bit, but this is sacrificing permanents, and it's doing it, this is the kind of thing I'd like more to see. I like to see, okay, yeah, we are kind of doing something that you would expect in those colors, which of course we do want to keep within the color pie here a little bit, but we're doing it in a very unique and different way that we haven't seen before, right? You're sacrificing card types, which is really, really neat. Pretty good payoff as well. So again, this is about where I would expect. It's a little difficult to build around, but also a really neat commander that I figured would be pretty popular. Minskin Boo. I believe this is the one that gets played in Legacy all the time. Possibly Modern as well. I don't know if, sometimes that is transferable, where a lot of people, because they see a commander or a certain card played really, really successfully in other formats. Like the fact that this gets played in Modern is like, or in Legacy is like, wow, some of the most powerful cards ever printed are played in that format, and they're playing Minskin Boo. Pretty interesting. I think it transfers. I think people see cards performing really, really well in other formats, and they want to use it in Commander. So I think that affects this a little bit. I'm not saying it's a bad commander. I just think that the numbers here are bumped up a little bit for that reason. I think that certainly is the case. Near a Wild Mage, I don't even know what it does. Whenever you cast a spell, you may put it on the bottom of owner's library. If you do, reveal cards. Top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. You may cast the card without paying its... okay. I mean, 6 mana, that's a lot. It has a really powerful ability, potentially really powerful ability. I mean, it's doing the thing that people like to do in Commander, which is I just cast these big dumb spells. And this is not, funny enough, this is not an instant or sorcery. This is just whenever you cast a spell. So very open-ended. So that's good. You cast a spell, you put it on the bottom of your own. So this is doing Possibility Storm, is it not? If you do reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal it, this is doing Possibility Storm, sort of. Except with Possibility Storm, it's card type. So if you cast an instant, you get an instant. Here you can do anything. So I can cast a Lightning Bolt and flip a Blightsteel Colossus off the top, right? Which I imagine a lot of people are probably doing. Okay, pretty neat. I mean, it costs 6, so it's going to take you in Izzet colors. So it's going to be a while before I get my commander into play, and then I'm going to cast a spell and set up. There's a lot of setup there, but yeah, okay. Nalia Denaris, and again, I have a patron with this deck. They had it immediately. As soon as Baldur's Gate came out, they had this deck put together, and I played against it. Pretty powerful, not too shabby at all. They're doing the party mechanic here. At the beginning of combat turn, if you have a full party, put a +1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain death touch until end of turn. It's pretty good. I know this is a weird comparison, but I would compare it to Edgar Markov a little bit. It's the party thing, but it is tribal essentially. And cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard. I mean, come on. There's, that's not. Those are really great creature types, obviously in the format. I believe he won that game. Raphael Fiendish Savior, again, another one of my favorites. I just really liked, what we have the Anthem effect, of course. And again, and I will call this the Gerelf effect with the mono blue Gerelf, where you have that tribal effect and everyone's like, okay, I want to do demon, devil, imp, or tiefling, or all of those tribal, where for me, it's the last ability that I'm building around. That +1/+1 lifelink is given to the devils that I am making. I want that trigger at the beginning of each end step. I want to get that trigger. Just like in my Denic deck, where I want to get that trigger on everyone's turn. Here, I'm building this deck to get that trigger on everyone's turn. That's what I want to build around. The tribal aspect is just a nice little added bonus. I would not shoehorn too many demons, devils, imps, or whatever in this deck, unless they really, really fit with what you're doing. Really neat commander, for sure. Zevlor, this one I thought would be a little more popular, and I think... Was this not the very first one that was spoiled? I can't remember. I think it was spoiled very early on. It's doing the Grixis Spellslinger thing, and it's doing it pretty darn well. Again, I deck doctored a patron who had this, and it's pretty great commander. And it is in Grixis colors, which is great for the Spellslinger theme. And, I mean, that targets a single opponent or a single permanent opponent controls. That's really easy to build around. I'm a little surprised it's not more popular. I mean, look at it. It's barely more popular than Glunch, which is sort of like a huggy commander. That's surprising. I thought this guy would be way more popular. Certainly not essentially the same as Glunch. Again, Glunch, probably one of my favorite commanders from the set. I thought it was really, really good. Just a really neat build around where, this is the modal aspect that I like on commanders, where I can build around the +1/+1 counters or the treasures or the card draw, and it also plays into the huggy theme and the politics theme with everything, and I can build around putting counters on my opponent's creatures, or I can build around giving my opponents treasure tokens, and there's just so much you can build around here. I did this on my channel. You can check it out if you want to. Really neat commander, so I did not think it was going to be this popular, though. I'm kind of happy that it is. I mean, it's more popular than Kadira, Color of the Small, which I called in that video, and I stand by this, maybe the best commander at making tokens, at least in Selesnya colors. It deals combat damage to a player for each token you control. Create a 1/1 white rabbit. Wow. How hard it, like if I have a Smothering Tithe in play, and I guess that's maybe in a top end example, but still, it's not hard to make tokens, right? And your commander is creating that many. It is so easy. Your commander is trample. Couple of bumps, couple of Anthem effects. Again, if I throw that flowering, what's that, Flowering of the White Tree or whatever from Lord of the Rings, I put that in this deck. My commander now is a 5/4 trample, ward 1, and all of the tokens that I'm making are also getting the +1/+1 bump. I think Anthems is what you want to go with here, because the Anthems are going to give you're in sort of a go tall strategy and also a go wide strategy, like my Shanna deck does. And my Shanna deck was very much, I could have probably easily made this the commander for my Shanna deck because I'm benefiting off of having this really big creature that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which of course is your commander. And then also, but I also have a whole bunch of tokens in play. So I want those kind of Anthem effects as well. I think it's a great commander. I can't believe Glunch is more popular than Kadira. That's shocking. Furgak, Cunning, and Instigator. Whenever one of our dragons you control attack an opponent, goad target creature that player controls. Dragon Tribal, and more goading. Not really much to talk about, to be honest. Alunda the Seer, again, another one I did on my channel, another one that I thought was super interesting. I had like Glunch and Alindo and Raphael and Babala Saga. Those are like my favorite commanders from the set, I think. I thought this was great. And one thing that I pointed out in the video that I did for this is draw a card, then exile a card from your hand and put a number of time counters equal to the amount of the mana value it gains whenever the last time counter is removed from this card. It's basically gives it suspend. However, then remove a time counter from each other card you own in exile. And of course, all of the cards that you're using with your commander are going to get those time counters removed, but also you can just put any suspend card in here. You can now throw any suspend card in this deck, and those time counters will get removed as well, as long as your commander is using this ability. And of course, the untapping in Simic colors, super easy. Super easy. So this, I'm a little surprised this isn't more popular, because, I mean, Simic colors, it's doing something very unique and interesting. Does fit with the suspend tribal theme as well, though. Powerful ability. You know, it's akin to a Joyra, not quite there, but it's akin to it. I'm surprised it's not more popular. The Council of Four, encouraging you to draw your second card, also benefiting you off of your opponent's drawing cards, benefiting you off of your opponent's casting spells. I always love stuff like that. I love any, as we see again with Ristic Study and Smothering Tithe and all these great cards, the more stuff your opponents do, the better those cards get, which is why they're so good in the commander format. And your commander is essentially doing that. Your commander is sort of like a Ristic Study Smothering Tithe stapled on a commander, which is kind of funny. So you're like, oh, you want to cast a bunch of spells? Go right ahead. You want to draw a bunch of cards? Go right ahead. Pretty neat commander for sure. Gorian Wise Mentor. This is the adventure one, right? Yeah, whenever you cast. So again, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to take the three best colors that adventures do. Are adventures in every color, or are they only in certain colors? They're in every color, right? But they're going to take the best three colors for adventures and just make a commander that gives you a benefit off of casting adventures. Okay, I mean, sure. Minthara, Merciless Soul, pretty interesting one. I like the Ward X, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Pretty neat. And at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, you get an experience counter. And, I don't love the payoff because it's just creatures you control getting a bump for each experience counter you have. That part I don't love. I wish it was something a little more interesting. This is a commander that I might have gone after myself, and I don't have an Orzhov commander. If they had made that the for every experience counter you have, something, I just giving your creatures that bump is just not interesting enough of a build around for me personally. It is a win con though. Win con stapled on your commander, which is always good. Again, Mazzy True Sword Paladin. This should be way up here. This should be like up in the 4,000 range. Like, this is so interesting, super good. There's just so much you can do here, and I'm gonna have to probably talk about this one on my 5 unique builds and I've talked about it already quite a bit. I mean, you can this is whenever an enchanted creature attacks one of your opponents, it gets +2/+0 and gains trample in a turn. You don't even have to have any auras in your deck in order to make that work because your opponents can just do it. But more interestingly, I can just cast auras on my opponent's creatures, like the ones that goad them, for example. Seems pretty good. And then they get that benefit. So that in itself is really neat. The other really neat thing you can do here is, because whenever an aura you control is put into a graveyard, you can essentially recast it. You can do the sort of aristocrats aura thing where I have a faith healer, sacrifice my aura to gain life, and then I get to recast. You can do that as well. Femerif Enchantress, I believe, is the one where whenever I sacrifice an enchantment, I get to draw a card. Or whenever an enchantment goes to the graveyard, I get to draw a card. Really neat cards like that fit in this deck as well. So and again, even if you just do the run-of-the-mill aura theme, it's probably the best commander for that as well. So I'm really surprised this one's not more popular. I think it's a phenomenal commander. Bane, Lord of Darkness. I didn't love these are gods, but don't have that great protection. Again, Tyrate Sanctum, auto include in this deck and in the Merkle deck as well. As long as your life total is less than or equal to half your starting life total, it's okay. That's okay, I guess. Indestructible, but other than that, it's very susceptible to removal. At least this guy only costs 4. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, target opponent may have you draw a card. If they don't, you may put a creature card with equal or lesser toughness from your hand into the battlefield. Yeah, I was looking at this one the other day, and I was thinking, you really got to make sure your hand's full. I want to make sure I'm taking advantage of that. Again, like I say all the time, you want to make sure you're taking advantage of that. So if I get this trigger and I can't put something into my hand, it's like having a scrap trawler, right? And your scrap trawler, you have artifacts dying and there's nothing in your graveyard to get back, and your scrap trawler ability is just getting wasted. That feels bad. This is very similar to a scrap trawler that way, where, okay, I don't have any creatures I can cheat into play. It kind of seems like a waste. It's an interesting build. It's a neat one for sure. Duke Ulder Ravengard. Yeah, this has, again, a 6 mana. That's a lot. It's in the Boros Attacky theme, which isn't great, but pretty powerful ability. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and Myriad until end of turn. Myriad's pretty good, right? Obviously, there's a lot you can do there. Mahadi Emperor Imperium Master. This, to me, is, like, again, shocking that this 1,000 decks is pretty good by today's, like, look at how far down we are. We're way down there, right? I mean, this guy is more popular. Like, there's a lot of commanders that I'm like, wow, more popular. This is the best treasure token commander in Rakdos colors, I think. And Rakdos are probably the best color for treasure tokens. So this is surprising. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. That's not hard to do, right? It's Gadrick on steroids. Way better than Gadrick. Not only do I get black, but it's every creature that died, token creatures included, my opponent's creatures. Man, I'm surprised this is more popular. People love treasures. And again, the treasures are great in their own respect, but also I can do the artifact theme here as well, which Rakdos Colors does. The sacrifice artifact theme is great in Rakdos Colors as well. I'm surprised this guy's not more popular. He's also a Rakshasa, right? Cat Devil, which is pretty neat. Again, Dinah here, Invoke Adept. I'm not even sure what this does. You may activate abilities of other creatures you control as though they had haste. Okay, so it is a 1,000-year elixir. Okay. I mean, that's pretty good. You can just throw a bunch of creatures in here with activated abilities. When you next activate an ability this turn by spending 4 or more mana to activate it. What? When you next activate an ability this turn by spending... That is some weird wording. When you next activate an ability this turn by spending 4 or more mana to activate it. So in other words, you have to spend the 4 mana and then activate it. Copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. Oh boy. That's interesting. This is the kind of commander that it wouldn't surprise me if it was really popular, because it's open-ended. It's doing something it's doing activated ability tribal, right? Which is sometimes what people go after. At the same time, this last ability is kind of confusing and weird and hard to use. And that is the reason why it might not be as popular. And also commanders that are just so on the nose now, again, are sometimes people are just like, eh. Like, again, this to me is one of those commanders that if it came out 4 years ago would have been insanely popular. And now people are like, they're kind of bored of stuff like this. This ability is pretty, it's very limited. So whenever you next activate an ability, if 4 mana we used, you get to copy it. That's okay. You could do some pretty neat things there, I'm sure. For me, I'm looking at this commander and I'm thinking, okay, there probably is some really interesting directions you can go, but it's not getting me excited at all. It's just too on the nose, right? Activated ability tribal. It's just too on the nose for me. This is another one, Asterion the Descendant, where I was like, maybe the fact that this cost 6 is the reason why not a lot of people went after it, because I thought it's pretty good, right? I mean, a commander with Death Touch and Lifelink's pretty good. Target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life you lost this turn. That's great, right? It is a Exquisite Blood. No, the other one, Sanguine Bond, right? It's sort of Sanguine Bond. Again, your win con staple and your commander is always good. You gain life equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. Okay, wait a minute. Target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn. Oh boy, this is confusing. Okay, it's not like Sanguine Bond at all. Target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn. So it's a wound reflection. Okay, it's a wound reflection effect. So instead, this would have made it a much more interesting commander, I think. What I accidentally read, target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. And you gain life equal to the amount of life an opponent lost this turn. I think that would have, if they would have flipped it, if they would have reversed it, I think that would have been a little more interesting as a commander. Because here you're just like, okay, I either want to gain a ton of life or my opponents lose life. It's okay. 6 mana is kind of a lot though. So Rilsa Rail Kingpin. This one, which is this one? You take the initiative. Okay, whenever you attack, target attacking creature gains death touch until end turn. If you've completed a dungeon, that creature also gains +5/+0 and gains first strike and menace. So obviously +5/+0, first strike, menace, and death touch is amazing. Just whenever you attack and giving one of your attacking creatures death touch is pretty good. It's doing the initiative thing. Do people like? I'm still on the fence of whether or not people really like the dungeon mechanic or not. The dungeon commanders are really all over the place. You look at Sephris, which, funny enough, I just talked about in a video recently from the original D&D set, the Forgotten Realms one. Really popular, right? So you have a couple that are really popular, maybe just because of what they're doing, not because of the dungeon mechanic. And then you have some that are really unpopular. This is a pretty good ability. And if you've completed a dungeon, giving any creature, like you could be your commander, which is going to be a 7/5 death touch first strike, right? Menace, pretty good. But just being able to give that to any of your creatures is pretty good. So, yeah, I guess that's not a lot of surprise there. Commander Liera Portier, and this commander, this is another one that I think if it would have came out a few years ago would have been insanely popular, but we've done the exile tribal thing so much now that people I think are getting a little bored with it. Whenever you attack, spells you cast from exile this turn cost X less to cast, where X is the number of players being attacked. Exile the top X cards of your library until end of turn. You may cast the spells. Again, it's pretty on the nose. You're just doing exile tribal and Boros colors. And also you're in the attacky theme in Boros, so even though it seems like a very unique, interesting commander, at the end of the day, it's kind of doing a lot of the same things we've seen before. Baal, Lord of Murder. And by the way, Baal, Bane, and Merkel were all the gods, the evil gods that Cyric, he killed them all and took all their powers, and he had all their portfolios. So I think that's why they did those three specifically, as far as the gods. They were turned into creatures. I'm not going to get all. The time of trouble, they were turned into creatures. Set down to earth, whatever. Anyway, again, has the as long as your life total thing, which I don't love that. It's not super great for protecting your commander. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies. So again, that's why they all have dies triggers, right? Because they are gods that are sort of dealing with death and whatnot. The death portfolio in general. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and goad it. So again, I'm surprised this guy's as popular as he is. We're doing, again, with the +1/+1, we're doing +1/+1 counter and goading. The other two are way more unique and interesting. This one is just super boring, in my opinion. Ojai the Exquisite Blade enters the battlefield. You gain 2 life, scry 2. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile up to 1 target creature you control. So, yeah, I mean, you're doing Azorius Blink. Okay, anyway, moving on. Lozan Dragon's Legacy. This one I actually don't mind. So we're doing the adventure thing, which again is kind of on the nose. Also dragons, so you don't have to just do adventures. You can do adventures and you can do dragons. And your commander deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target that isn't a commander. And a lot of people, I heard them complaining about the fact that, oh, you can't hit your opponent's commanders. That's terrible. I mean, you can hit everything else, including your opponents, right? Any target that isn't that isn't a commander. So you can hit your opponents even. You can go face with this ability. Seems pretty good. If I have like 50% or 60% of my spells in my deck are adventure or dragon spells, my commander becomes a Terror of the Peak. So that seems pretty good. Trackus the Butcher. Double, it's okay. The Dragon Lord of Tarkat gives double strike, which is better than this, I think. Probably. What can you say? People like Dragon Tribal. There's like 50 Dragon Tribal commanders, and you still get one like this, and people are still playing it. Wow. I mean, they needed a lot of commanders for this set. So, I mean, they don't all have to be bangers, right? Kaga, Shadow, Archdruid. Again, I have no idea what this even does. Attack, it gains Death Touch. Okay. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell from among the cards in your graveyard that were put there from your library this turn. Well, gee, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm surprised that's not more pop. It's doing the self-mill thing, which people love so much, right? I mean, it's not super great, but so I guess I'm not surprised with where it is. This one really surprises me. Man, like people really love Dragon Tribal. Like, holy cow. This has got to be the worst Dragon Tribal commander ever, as a lot of people pointed out. Blue-green dragons. I mean, obviously green-red. I mean, at least this guy's in green-red, and obviously red is the main color for dragons. Any Dragon Tribal commander that doesn't have red is already in a really tough spot. And you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast Dragon Spells to the top of your library. Okay. It's not like you're going to be doing this a bunch, right? Dragons are typically expensive, so the payoff here is not great. You're like, and again, I'm the underwhelming commanders guy. It's a fun challenge to build a Simic Dragon Tribal deck, but I'm surprised there is more than 100 decks with this guy. I mean, I don't know. I'm really surprised. Is anyone else not surprised? There's even 271 of this. I'm pretty surprised. Wilson, even without the background. Look at it. Okay, so now we're getting into obviously the background commanders, but without any background. People are just going solo. They're doing the partner without thing that I actually like. I mean, look at this. Even people are playing the faceless one apparently. So obviously, even though Corlessa has 271 decks, which is not bad, it is still the least popular commander from this set if you don't include these solo background commanders. So I guess that's not a surprise. I should say, like, still 330 in 324, 271, that's pretty good. That is more pop. I'll just say that the numbers are definitely a lot different than they used to be. It used to be that 1,000 was a lot for a commander. Now you got to get up to like 5 or even 10,000 before it's a really popular commander in the format. I will say though, these three guys here on the bottom that I just talked about are all more popular than probably all of my decks. I think I might maybe have one deck that is as popular as these guys are. So for me, this is like 271 is not bad. It's pretty good. I'm surprised it's as popular. Okay, let's end up here talking about the 99 cards. And of course, I've had a lot of commanders to talk about, so I'm going to have to keep this brief. I was just looking at this the other day. The Cantor of Endless Water is the most popular card from this set. Like, guys, do you actually need it? Okay. Do you actually need the no maximum? Like, I thought for sure, okay, Thought Vessel is just one of those cards that's been in the format for a long time. It's been in tons of precons. That's why everyone plays it. Nope, people just really think they're going to have more than 7 cards in their hand all the time. How often does that actually happen? I really think that you could probably find a better mana rock to put in your deck than Decanter of Endless Water. I guarantee you this is in more decks than Ornithopter of Paradise, which I think is maybe the best, like, it's for sure top 3 in the entire format for me, Ornithopter of Paradise. I can't believe how much people play this card. Wow, this is the most popular card from a really, really good commander set. I get it's colorless and it's a mana rock, but do you really need the maximum hand size thing? Is it not better to have maybe a Patriarch Seal, which I think is also from this set? Yeah, there it is. Untapping your commander seems pretty good. Do you really need the no maximum hand size thing? Do you really? I think most decks don't need it. I have this card. I have this in one deck, which is my Abishon deck, because I have these, I will draw a whole bunch of cards all at once. And of course, I don't want to discard them. And that's a mono blue deck, so I need lots of mana rocks. That's the only reason why I have it. It's not super important. I could take it out. Especially in the 2 mana slot, there's probably better mana rocks that'll fit your deck better. In the 3 mana slot, for sure, because there's a lot of, go check out my mana rock video. There's a lot of really handy mana rock. I did my list, top 10 3 mana value rocks. I didn't mention Decanter of Endless Water. So that means there are 10 3 mana value rocks in the format that I think are more usable than a Decanter of Endless Water. I'm surprised it's number 1 from this set. Black Market Connections, not a lot of surprise there. And I will talk about Archivist of Ogma. This I thought was going to be the most popular card from the set. It is still gaining popularity, as I correctly predicted. And by the way, whoever that guy is out there that said that was arguing with me because I was like, Archivist of Ogma, this is so good. And he's like, it's not even that good. I got so much pushback on that video. And the one guy who's like, didn't think it was going to be popular in the format at all. And I'm just like, dude, you're just being a troll at this point. Like, that, come on. It's a 2 mana card that draws cards in white. For that reason alone, it's gonna see play. It's the 3rd most popular card from this set, which of course is a really popular commander set. I'm still like 68,000. I thought it would be more than that. I mean, it is a $9, $10, $12 card, whatever it is. which of course is going to keep it down a little bit. But man, this just so easily slots into any deck. Again, if I'm talking about card draw in the format, period, getting to my card draw video, this is if I am not in a specific theme, right? If I'm on a life gain theme, if I'm on a life gain theme, this works. But if I'm on a life gain theme, I want Well Lost Dreams. If I'm on a sacrifice theme, maybe I want Dark Prophecy. If you're not in any specific theme at all, Archivist of Ogma is one of the best card draw options in the entire format, in my opinion, because it's just going to draw you cards. Whenever your opponent searches their library, you got a card draw. Period, in the format. It's a great card draw option. One of the best, in my opinion. So I'm surprised it's not even more popular. Maybe if it starts, I don't know if it's been reprinted. I don't think it has. Once it starts seeing reprints, I think it's going to see even more play. It's only going to get more and more and more popular. To me, this is just like a Smothering Tithe or any of those cards that it's always going to be good in the format. At no point are people not going to be searching their libraries in the Commander format. So this is always going to be a phenomenal card draw option. It's only 2 mana, and it also has flash on top of all that. So this is a card that's just going to continue to climb and continue to climb forever. They're never going to come out with a better option than this, so it's just always going to continue to climb. Black Market Connections, again, I think Archivist of Ogma should be number 1. Black Market Connections, obviously, it is a great card for sure. I will just say again, keep track. Like I say about those Ancient Tomb, Mana Crypt, Black Market Connection, Sylvan Library is another one where people just they get so greedy. I want all 3 cards. I don't want to put nothing back. And they're paying 8 life for that. A lot of people will take all 3 of these and you'll lose what? 6 life? 6 life every upkeep for a treasure token, a card draw, and that's a lot of life. Just keep track. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not a great card. It is a great card. And you can very easily just get the treasure token or just get the card draw. I think a lot of times people are doing all of it or several of it, and they're losing a whole lot of life, and it might be costing you the game. Just keep track of the life you're paying. That's all I'm saying. Ancient Copper Dragon, a card that I didn't mention at all. And again, not super impressed with. I say all the time, any card that is creating treasure tokens, especially if it has the possibility of creating a lot of treasure tokens, people are going to lose their minds over it in the Commander format. This costs 6 mana. Unless you have a haste enabler, you have to wait an entire other turn. I literally just played a game with one of my patrons who had this card. They play it on turn 7. They have to wait a whole nother turn. Then they attack with it. They actually connected with it, which of course, maybe I have a blocker, maybe I have removal. They actually did connect with it. They rolled a 2. They got 2 treasure tokens. Wow, all of that. 6 mana creature. And you are dealing damage to your opponent, sure, but you're rolling a dice, guys. As a D&D guy, right? Again, maybe because I played D&D. For the people that don't play D&D, they look at that and they're like, D20, I can get 20 treasure tokens. I play D&D. You know how often you roll a 20 or a 19 or an 18? It doesn't happen that often, right? That's why you want 3 or 4 attacks so you can at least get one good number out of all those. You're you'll roll a 20 just as often as you roll a 1. You'll roll a 5 just as often as you roll a 15. So, even a 5, it's okay, I went through all that trouble and got 5 treasure tokens and it's turn 8. It doesn't seem great. So I wasn't super excited about this guy. A lot of people really fourth out of this whole set. You look at the cards like Displacer Kitten or Wild Magic Surge or Patriarch Seal or Deep Gnome Terramancer. All of those cards are way, way better, in my opinion, and seem let's just go through these cards, okay? And I'm going to compare them to Ancient Copper Dragon. I guess you could put Ancient Copper Dragon in any deck, and yes, it goes in the Dragon. This is a $70 card, guys. What? What is going on? This is not that good. This costs more than a Smothering Tithe. Is this card better than Smothering Tithe? Not by a mile. Not by a mile. Is this better than Rhystic Study? Not by a mile. This is... for sure, this is maybe the most overhyped card in the format, at least right now. Is this played in other formats? I don't think it is. Maybe it is. Maybe that's why it's $70. I don't know. That's insane. For a 6 mana card that could possibly create you 1 treasure token, that's insane in my opinion. It's probably a slam dunk in all the Dragon Tribal decks, which of course we've already established. There's probably way too many of those in the format. But let's just, this card is, as Displacer Kitten is a slam dunk in any blinking deck, which of course there's a ton of those. But also, as I pointed out in the video I did, it is bringing non-land permanents. So even in a Saga Tribal deck, slam dunk, right? Anyone that is putting together those Tom Bombadil decks, put Displacer Kitten in there because every time you cast a Saga, you get to blink it, another one, and reset it. It resets stuff. This card is so good. It goes in so many decks. Jaheiri obviously goes in all the token decks, right? A lot of these backgrounds and background commanders will do so. Wild Magic Surge, in my opinion, it might be better than Chaos Warp. It's debatable. It only costs 2 mana. It's a slam dunk in any mono red deck. A lot of 2-color decks as well. Probably Izzet decks I would put it in. A lot of Gruul decks I would put it in. It's just a commander staple. Should be in way more decks. Like for me, Wild Magic Surge and Displacer Kitten are a auto include in way more decks, in way more archetypes than is Ancient Copper Dragon. Copper Dragon is I would say an auto include in Dragon, Tribal, and Treasures. And I guess, I mean, are there that many? I don't know. Maybe there are now. Patriarch Seal again. I think it should be in way more decks than Decanter of Endless Water because I think there are more commanders out there that want to be untapping, just the commanders alone that want to be untapping, than there is decks that are going to have an over maximum hand size. Deep Gnome Terramancer, I'm like, I got to make a video talking about Deep Gnome Terramancer, and I don't even know what I would include it in. Deep Gnome Terramancer is maybe the most underrated card in the entire format. Here's the most overrated card in the entire format, Ancient Copper Dragon. Here's the most underrated card in the entire format, Deep Gnome Terramancer. This card is bonkers. It's phenomenal. It's maybe the best ramp card. It's the best mono white ramp card, and it's one of the best ramp cards in the entire format. It's repeatable. This is repeatable. I go get any land, any planes out of my deck and put it directly into play. And again, just like with Archivist of Ogma, same thing. People looked at our Archivist of Ogma and they're like, oh, how often is that going to happen? It happens constantly. This also happens constantly every time. And I'll direct you to the MTG Goldfish Commander guys. I can't remember his name. He's also super high on this card. He's in love with this card just like I am. And the description he gave is just like what I think a lot of people will do if they start playing this card more. I can't believe this is only a $3 card. I thought this was going to be like a $30 card because it goes in every deck. It goes in a 5-color deck. This gets triomes and puts them directly into play, guys. Like I'm shocked. And again, maybe it's the do this only once each turn thing that shuts people off of it. This was my number 1 card from Battle for Baldur's Gate because I thought it was going to be the most played card, right? Play this card. And just like he said, he talked about this in a video recently. I can't remember which one I was watching, but he talked about how he threw this in a deck because he thought it would be good, and it way overperformed. It was way better than he thought it would. And I think, again, just like Archivist of Ogma, you are surprised how much people are searching their library. Here, you are probably going to be surprised with how much this is triggering. If it only triggers once, as I've said in a couple of videos already, if this card only triggers once, because it has flash, my opponent casts a Rampant Growth or cracks their fetch land, I flash this in, 2 mana instant speed, get a Triumph, put it into play. How good is that? If you had a 2 mana instant that said, go search your library for a Triumph and put it into play, how busted would that card be? And you'd put it in every deck, right? I don't get it. 33,000 is pretty good, but this should be in 100,000 decks. I'm shocked. This is the most shocking thing out of everything I've talked about in this video. This is the most shocking. The Deep Gnome Terramancer is the most underrated card in the entire format. And this is the most, I can't believe this is $70. It's $70, $3. Like, huh? I'm going to end on that. I think I've said enough. There's my opinions. You guys can let me know. I was very opinionated in this video. There's certainly a lot to, my particular views on certain cards, especially in the 99. This was the set for me. And again, I'm going to talk about a video about commander design. This is the set for me where they really started to, because they were doing so many commanders. We had a lot of the same things, a lot of the goading and treasure tokens and +1/+1, a lot of the same stuff. Here we go again. And for that reason, a lot of these commanders were sort of a little off-putting for me. I wasn't really a big fan of them. So, and I know a lot of people will think that's a controversial view. You're really going to think my video, when I do my video on, I don't know, whatever I'm going to call it, poor commander design, this is the set where they really started doing that, and they kept on doing it. I'm going to make a video about that. That will be really controversial. I imagine a lot of people won't agree with me. And I know a lot of people probably really like Ancient Copper Dragon. Deep Gnome Terramancer to me is the best card from this set. Maybe Archivist of Ogma. I could go back and forth. We got 2 creatures that are essentially very similar. 2/2 mana creatures with flash that for me could go in any deck. Mono white or 5-color, both of those cards could go in. And I'm surprised they're not more popular because they're far and away, I think they might be the 2 best cards we got of all last year for the Commander format. So anyway, that is all. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thanks for tuning in.